Yeah, okay. Thanks for coming this morning. Again, I'm Chief Tim Malley from the Lakewood Police Department, and we're here today to announce that the DNA from James W. Daniel III has been returned as being exclusive to him in the August 30th rape and robbery on Warren Road in Lakewood, Ohio. Daniel is no stranger to the Lakewood Police Department and crime in Lakewood. He was arrested and convicted of a violent aggravated robbery in 2010, just getting out of prison in the spring of 2014, and then he still is committing crimes in the city as well as once he got out. This is a very good coordinated effort between a lot of agencies involved in the investigation, led by County Prosecutor Tim McGinty, Cleveland Police Sex Crimes Unit, the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Bova, and the Violent Fugitive Task Force with Pete Elliott. We're all involved in this investigation, along with the Medical Examiner's Office and their crime lab with Dr. Gilson. It's really a large-scale investigation once we realized that we had similar fact patterns between what happened in Cleveland a couple days after our crime, and we realized that there was a very urgent need for us to get together and investigate these as a very probable serial rapist was in all of our communities. With this announcement that we're going to be seeking charges against James Daniel for our rape and robbery, we certainly hope that this will assist our victims in Lakewood and Cleveland, and I know a long and painful recovery that they're going to be going through, but at least there's some peace of mind knowing that these people have been, or their attacker has been arrested, and definitely this is a guy that should not be seen in the light of day again on our streets. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to County Prosecutor Tim McGinty.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks very much. I want to first thank Chief Tim Malley and Lakewood Police for the excellent investigation they conducted. They worked with the Cleveland Police. They saw the Cleveland Police case on 102nd. They communicated with one another, 102nd and Lake, and they saw similarities, and they worked from there. From their combined experiences, thought this is possibly the same individual. There was similar MO or signature to the event and description. We worked together as a task force on this case, and the message we want to send again is you can run but you can't hide. We are working on serial rapists and we're bringing them in. We're working on serial offenders, we're bringing them in. This guy, Mr. Daniel, fits both categories. He's a habitual criminal, as is his brother. We believe there are many more like him. This produced outrage in the law enforcement community as well as the general community. When people saw that tape, when law enforcement saw that tape, everyone alike was outraged. And we knew that this was an experienced criminal from the way he acted. We suspected he was a chronic or a serial offender. This was not his first rodeo, so to speak. And we worked to go after him. And we worked together. We are doing this on a regular basis. With the Rape Kit initiative, CODIS initiative. This man is also going to be indicted. We're asking for an indictment, seeking an indictment on a CODIS hit for 2000. He raped a woman in the 4th District of Cleveland. He comes back on that. We also anticipate charging him for a robbery in Marlowe Avenue that the Lakewood Police have uncovered and produced evidence on a porch. People just sitting on a porch, and they were robbed in Lakewood in the same time frame as the August attack of the woman on Warren Road. Now, this brings great satisfaction to the victims and prevents future victims. This quick response. This is the type of thing these are the type of arrests and indictments we anticipate in making in 1,000 cases before this Rape Kit initiative with Cleveland and the sheriff and the marshal and are over. Now, I'd like to introduce some of the individuals here and the hard work they have done to make this possible. Now, this took hundreds of combined hours in this case to bring in a very short period. Time was running, and so these officers and these agencies worked very hard, and they worked very well together. First First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Gilson, whose team at the coroner's office was essential. Cleveland and Lakewood, and my chief of special operations at the county prosecutor's office, Rick Bell, used Dr. Gilson and his team to establish the DNA in a very rapid fashion on these cases, and they're working on others. Dr. Gilson's team has been essential. They did what these officers did, is they did an all hands on deck procedure. They ran and when asked and put everything else aside to work on this case immediately to bring this guy to justice before he struck again. We were confident that this guy wasn't going to quit. It would be foolish to think he was going to quit. So time was of the essence before he raped and attacked someone else or people he associated with. Dr. Gilson, why don't you tell us of your teamwork and introduce you?
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Dr. Tom Gilson. I'm the medical examiner for Cuyahoga County, and with me this morning is Dr. Nasser Butt, who is the director of our DNA unit in our Cuyahoga County Regional Forensic Science Laboratory. I don't have much to add to what the prosecutor already said. Obviously, a crime like this gets everybody's attention, and we wanted to process the evidence as rapidly as we could. I have to salute Dr. Butt and his team for the rapidity with which they were able to return a profile that matched to the suspect in this case. And I agree, I didn't know his whole history, but certainly it's disturbing to think of such a person having the potential to do something like this again. There were a number of people who put in extra time on this, and it was given our highest priority. And I think that, working with Lakewood Police, Chief Maley's group, and the Cleveland Police Department, we were able to identify the profile that matched for both of the crimes that were mentioned, the serial sexual attacks. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end about DNA, and Dr. Butt can answer the others if I can.
What Dr. Gilson and Dr. Butt did in just a couple days used to take 6 months. They work rapidly, they work hard, and they have helped us in this case and many other cases make these identifications. You'll remember the Gloria Pointer case, where the little girl was killed on East 105th Street in 1984. Their work brought the results that we all know about a net killer and serial rapist for one of many examples. I'd also like to introduce the Cleveland Police, Detective Moctezuma, if you'd say some words, or Lieutenant McPike. Their words were, I know he wants to make a long speech. Go ahead. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone involved with this investigation. I kid you not, this is not something one person could do by themselves. Everyone had a very important role and found a lot of information, all pieces to the puzzle, so to speak. So I thank everyone involved for their assistance.
Thank you, Detective. And thank you, Lieutenant McPike. These are dedicated officers, and they worked hard. And everybody reached out. Everybody here, from the sheriff to the marshal, we saw the arrests that the marshal coordinated, tracked these guys down, found them in the way they do, found incriminating evidence. The sheriff, all the work he did, Detective Jacobs in the interrogations, did a magnificent job. I've seen many interrogations and interrogators over the last 40 years, and he's one of the best I've ever seen. The Lakewood detectives' work was outstanding to identify these cases and put them together. We think there are many other cases. We're going to release his public record of criminal arrests and convictions to you with this release, so you get the idea. One thing we have learned from the CODIS Rape Kit initiative, and it's education, all of us, and education of the whole country, and people working on this, to the prosecutor in Detroit or Memphis or and the police officers and chiefs there, we're learning. And we're learning when we go back on these old rape kits, and we have a 20-year history or 10 or 15-year history of these fellows, and we look back, there are DNA such as this fella, Mr. Daniel, the third. His CODIS is in the bank, so to speak, or the library, the CODIS library, because he went to prison on an unrelated offense. So when we go back, we draw to that library, and he matches. So when we go back into rape kits and we look at a point where this technology wasn't available, 93, 94, et cetera, and now we're doing this match. We have the privilege of, or the luck of looking back at what they did for 20 years. In all of these cases, they have lived a life of crime. They have shown, and we're learning from this, they have shown themselves to be habitual, violent, dangerous criminals. They commit a wide variety of crime. They don't just commit sexual offenses. They do those. They have a common denominator, which is domestic violence. They beat women. Another common denominator is they don't work. They don't pay taxes. That's universal with these fellas. They engage in a variety of antisocial and violent crime, drug dealing, shooting one another, carrying weapons. Some have been to prison 2 or 3 times, and some of them have led us to murder cases. A couple have been convicted of murder. This is a violent group, and we realize when we focus on these individuals, these habitual violent offenders, we are stopping one-man crime waves. Mr. Daniel is a one-man crime wave. We're proud of taking him off, and we're going to be proud of taking a lot of other people off the street in the same manner, working together in a collaborative fashion. It's a very powerful group you see here. Between the marshal, the sheriff, the individual police departments, the individual detectives, you've got a lot of drive and determination. And then Chief Melly will entertain any questions.
We keep hearing, Chief, of the contact DNA that was used in the Cleveland case. Was it that type of DNA or bodily fluids? And was DNA used in the Marlowe evidence?
The DNA that was identified here came from a pocket of part of the victim's clothes, and was, again, to the touch, correct me if I'm wrong, it was touch DNA that came from inside her pocket.
Does that talk about how far the DNA technology has come, touch DNA as opposed to needing a bodily fluid? Or?
In my experience, definitely. I mean, when I started over 30 years ago, you never would have guessed that simply touching something and leaving, the DNA behind, whatever that was 30 years ago, we didn't even know of it, and that it would exclude you from everybody else on the face of the earth. It's amazing what it can do. We're still investigating that. We still have a lot of evidence to work through on that, so at this point we don't have the information released on that yet.
This is the prosecuting again.
Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned in 2000 the 4th District of Rape with Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Are there any other priors or allegations or things that you're investigating with him with sexual assault or?
He's the only, that's the only CODIS rape match right now. A woman was in her home in the 4th District, was awakened at 3 a.m. To a man standing over her with shirts or other objects blocking his face, attacked or raped her and left the home. So you never thought that'd be a solve. In 2000, you wouldn't think that's going to be a solve. And it's solved by this CODIS program, this technology, and this technological advances.
Prosecutor McGinty, with the BCI going through the last of the untested rape kits, do you anticipate that you will see Mr. Daniel's name pop up again?
I do. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. We have had that happen already. We have these serial rapists, and this is a hobby to these guys. He's a thief, like his brother. They were working the area. We can't tell if they went down to rape or he went down to just engage in his thievery. We know he worked the early morning hours. That was his shift, and he worked different areas. That's why we named him the early morning rapist before we knew who he was. And true to form, in many of his rapes or crimes were early morning type crimes. These fellas fit a pattern. The serial rapists we've looked at in the past have fit a pattern. They attack their victims in the same way or in a similar way. They drag them into houses on the street. They say similar things. They demand similar sex acts or make derogatory comments. They fit the physical description, and pretty soon you can figure out it's probably the same guy. For instance, we had a fellow we called the countdown rapist. After he'd attacked the women, take them into alleys or into the streets in a 2-mile radius on Cleveland's east side. He would, it's a pretty wide radius if you go to the center. Some are narrower than that. He would tell them to count down from 100 before they opened their eyes, or he would pick a number. That's unusual, so we called him the countdown rapist. Not every rapist does that. Maybe 1 in 100 or 1,000 does that, and you do that combined with physical description, other sexual acts or statements, and you know you got the same guy, or you feel somewhat confident you have the same guy.
How instrumental were these victims in aiding the investigation, and how are they doing?
I've not had direct contact with any of the victims, so the Lakewood and the Cleveland officers would be able to deal with that.
I'm going to ask, I forgot to mention earlier, Detective Scott Trommer and Don Melodic, who investigated our case for us, did a great job on this. Detective Trommer spoke with the victim in our case yesterday. Do you have any comment about just general response?
The general response, I think, is that she was glad that the suspect was caught. She was instrumental in helping us with this case because she had actually brought the pair of pants that she was wearing to our station that had the evidence that was really sealed everything up for us. So she was very instrumental in helping us as a team.
Detective, you've been in contact with the Cleveland victim.
Yes, my victim is very relieved and very grateful for the work that everyone put in. She is doing very well at this time.
I should mention that, we delayed this till today. Chief Melly wanted to make sure his victim knew, and not through the media, and that his detectives had a chance to see us, so I give you that explanation. We also wanted the public to know as soon as possible that, you do not have to look over your shoulder for this individual anymore. So we had to combine those two factors. But the real heroes, all these detectives and police officers are heroes to me, in the work they did and the bravery they display at risk to their lives, and which can never be underestimated. But the biggest hero in these cases, and all of us up here will agree, and there are many people who aren't here who worked on this case, by the way. The real hero in this case is the victims in every case. It takes great courage to come forward. The majority of victims don't come forward, unfortunately, and for reasons that are understandable. It takes great courage to come forward. They go to the police. They're still under a trauma from the event. They are taken to the hospital. They're examined in a very, very personal way. They're asked all these questions as strangers. It's a difficult experience, and they're looking over their shoulder. We've seen many women move after they've been attacked and raped. They don't tell the police. They're threatened. They're often threatened by the attacker. They move. They change their addresses. They change their names. They go unlisted. They actually go into hiding from the rapist because sometimes they don't know who the rapist is or will he attack again. It's a very frightening thing. And so when these detectives talk to these rape victims, and when we find out on these CODIS hits who it is, it's great relief for these women. It takes great courage to come forward. So they're the real heroes in these cases. They go under great trauma, great stress, and they make it through. We're trying to work with them. We've got great detectives here who work with them. In Lakewood and Cleveland, we have victim advocates at our office, and we have the rape crisis people all working together. There's everybody here could tell you a story of the trauma, the near nervous breakdowns that people have after these experiences. I think both these ladies actually left town, if I recall the facts in this case, well, just to get away for a while for a variety of reasons, just to get out of here. And they felt under tremendous stress. And so we salute them and thank them because they make it possible. If they're intimidated or they're frightened to the point where they just can't testify, then the rapist wins. He can strike again. So to us, it's very important to work with these victims and help them through this process. And the rape crisis has been great. They follow up. We're kind of done with a case when we're done with a case, but they follow forever with these ladies, and it takes a lot of group work, therapy, and everything else to get through these experiences.
I have two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
For prosecutor and chief, what is the status of the brother in the investigation? Is he still being questioned?
He's in jail, and he's under investigation at this point for a variety of issues. He's a suspect in some older cases involving rape of prostitutes. And when we're taking another look at those cases to see if we can gather enough evidence to charge.
Is that based on DNA CODIS hits from that, or can you elaborate a little?
I'm not going to elaborate any further, but he's a habitual criminal himself.
And are there any other cases in Lakewood, any other armed robberies besides the Marlowe one that these two might be considered suspects in at this point, or persons of interest?
Yeah, at this point, we do not have them tied into any other crimes in Lakewood.
Was his brother with him at any point in these rapes, or did he act solely alone?
I could comment on it. We believe, let Rick Bell, our chief of investigation, talk about that. He has a better grasp of the facts than I do.
His brother was involved to the extent at this point of driving him to the area. We do know that a white Camaro was used at this time. I'd like to say that over 100 tasks have been completed by over 20 investigators. One of those tasks was the collection of cameras throughout Cleveland and Lakewood. And through those interactions with the owners of the cameras, we've been able to retrieve a number of shots from those cameras that are being reviewed currently right now. Some of those shots will show that a white Camaro, 2014, was driven past the scene of the Lake Avenue address, where you can see clearly on the video that's already been provided to the media the rapist taking after the jogger and running her down. We've also been able to view other video at the same time that will show the brother going back to his house. And we have some electronic surveillance that has been produced that'll show us that the brother, in fact, was not there at the time of the rape, but was there immediately beforehand.
Is that coherent well with the DNA advances and the proliferation of cameras? Certainly it does. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There's a lot of cameras out there, and certainly this mini task force has been able to uncover their usefulness as corroborating evidence for the evidence that we have. You can't say enough, though, about the gumshoe, the work that was done by the officers that were out at the scene. The Cleveland Police, Lakewood, have put 2 weeks of intensive work into determining whether or not, and the extent to whether or not the brother as well as this person were involved. We're still waiting on other cell phone work that will also corroborate this. So all these advances in technology, DNA, the use of cell phones, the technology of the cameras, have all pointed to one person as being involved at this time. With those advances, we've been able to seek the right man for this indictment.
Rick, can you answer how close the brother lived to the crime scene and why they possibly used that particular area?
I think we'd be going a little too far into the investigation at this point, but they lived in the general vicinity. You saw where the arrest was. Your cameras were out there, where the marshals tracked them down to. You can, as a bird, as a crow flies, it's not very far.
Maybe this is a question for the Marshals Task Force, but approximately how many individuals like this are there right now that you guys are hunting currently?
Probably too many, but the good thing is, and we're on something different every day, but we have great partnerships that you see here with the sheriffs, the police, the prosecutor's office, and we're committed, and we're going to stay committed every single day throughout Cleveland and Northern Ohio to go after these individuals.
I want to remind everybody, this is a very dangerous individual. He had a weapon. He beat that woman at 104th and Lake with a weapon. She fought him. You can see that. He hit her. He struck her with the silver handgun, and she fought him. And she fought him in the street. She fought him in that alley as we slow motion that thing. She fought him in the back, and he assaulted her brutally. And, he used a weapon also and on other occasions here. So this is a very dangerous guy to track down and go after, particularly when he doesn't want to go back to prison. The police are taking great risk when they encounter a guy like this, and you don't know when you're going to encounter him. When these detectives are going at seeing witnesses, he might be there or tracking it down, and he might think this is the time, and he doesn't want to go back to prison. That's what happened. That's happened. We've seen police officers killed that way. The police officer doesn't even know the guy's there, and Officer Leon is an example. They get killed, and they don't realize the suspect is even there. Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks.